Imagine a country where vast regions are slowly emptying out. No, this isn't a disaster movie. This is the United States migration map as of today. I have highlighted 8 states that are right now experiencing the greatest crisis of trust from their own residents. Why are they fleeing? High prices? Crime? Or is it politics? Each of these 8 states has its own reason, and anyone planning their future in these states needs to know them. Get comfortable, because I am about to list them all. But first, like this video so YouTube knows that we are telling the truth here. At number 8, Hawaii, a paradise becoming unattainable. A state everyone dreams of visiting, but fewer and fewer people can afford to live in. In 2025, Hawaii showed the highest percentage of population decline, minus 0.85%, which proportionally outpaces even the exodus from New York. About 1.7 million residents are scattered across islands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, thousands of miles from the mainland. It is incredibly beautiful here. The climate is flawless, but it is one of the most expensive places to live in the United States. Why are people fleeing paradise? There is only one answer. It is just too expensive. Taxes in Hawaii are approximately 86% higher than the national average. Real estate prices are absurd. The average home costs over $920,000, and renting a one-bedroom apartment in Honolulu easily reaches $2,800 a month or more. Groceries cost a fortune since everything has to be imported. Gasoline is the most expensive in the country. Utility bills hit your wallet hard. Absolutely everything is more expensive. Local salaries do not cover these expenses. Although some positions pay more than on the mainland, this difference is not enough. Young professionals, the middle class, and even the indigenous population are being economically squeezed out of the state. The only ones who can stay are wealthy retirees who bought real estate decades ago, tourism workers forced to cram into rooms with roommates, and newcomers buying up housing as vacation homes, inflating prices even further. The pros? Ideal weather all year round. No brutal winters, no exhausting heat. A unique culture, an inimitable mix of Polynesian, Asian, and American traditions. If your finances allow it, living here is a fairy tale. The cons devouring the islands, an unbearable cost of living, unaffordable housing, complete geographical isolation, a lack of jobs outside the tourism sector, and the constant feeling that no matter how much you earn, it will not be enough for a comfortable life. From June 2023 to July 2025, Hawaii lost over 8% in net migration exchange. This is one of the highest outflow rates in the country. People are not leaving because the state is bad. It is losing residents because beauty alone is no longer enough, when simply existing alongside it requires giving up everything you have. Write in the comments, would you ever want to move to Hawaii if it were not for the high prices and taxes? At number 7, West Virginia, a fading state. This region has a unique and sad distinction. It is the only one in the United States where the population has been shrinking since 1949. Back then, about 2 million people lived here. In 2025, approximately 1.72 million. That is 70 years of relentless decline. The state's territory is small, about 23,300 square miles, covered by the dense forests of the Appalachian Mountains. It is one of the most rural parts of America. There are no megacities here. Even the capital, Charleston, has only about 46,000 residents. Why is West Virginia disappearing? There is one reason: coal. The state's economy relied entirely on mining it. This provided jobs for tens of thousands and fed entire communities. When the industry began to collapse, due to mine depletion, automation, and the country's shift to gas and renewable energy, West Virginia lost its foundation and was never able to find a worthy replacement. The demographic situation is critical. The death rate exceeds the birth rate, and natural population growth is negative because the population is aging. Young people leave for education and careers, leaving home behind. Between 2010 and 2021, there were 17,000 more deaths here than births, and those who left outnumbered those who arrived by 25,000. Jobs are scarce, household incomes are low, and educational opportunities are limited. There is nothing for the young and ambitious to do here except admire the scenery and enjoy the low prices, but that is not enough when there are no earnings. Moreover, the state is facing a public health crisis, one of the highest opioid death rates in the country, and sky-high levels of obesity and heart disease. The pros? Mountains, forests, rivers. Everything is wonderful. The cost of living is low, and houses can be incredibly cheap. People are genuinely friendly, and the authorities are trying to lure remote workers with various bonuses. The cons: a shattered post-coal economy, a shortage of jobs, an aging nation, population health issues, weak services and education, and outdated infrastructure. Between 2011 and 2025, the state lost 78,000 residents, an annual decline of 0.28%. The authorities are trying everything: programs to attract freelancers, tax incentives, and investments in tourism. But to reverse 70 years of degradation, marketing alone is not enough. An economic transformation is needed, which has not happened yet and most likely will not happen. At number 6, California. This is the state where the American dream costs millions. A state that was once synonymous with success has now become an example of how a sky-high cost of living can hollow out even the most desirable place. Between 2023 and 2025, California lost 279,575 residents due to domestic migration. This is the largest absolute loss in the country. About 37 million people live here, which still makes California the most populous state in the USA. However, in recent years, the population has been shrinking, falling below the 40 million mark for the first time since 2016. And although 2025 showed a slight recovery thanks to mass immigration from abroad, this only partially offset the domestic outflow. Why are people fleeing? The main reason is housing. The average home price in California is $799,000, which is more than double the national figure. In prestigious locations like Los Angeles or San Diego, price tags easily surpass $1 million. Renting a one-bedroom apartment in San Francisco starts at $3,300 a month. Salaries here are high, but it is still not enough. Even software engineers with an income of $210,000 are barely making ends meet. The middle class, teachers, nurses, the service sector are effectively being economically squeezed out. Only the ultra-wealthy, old-timers who bought real estate decades ago, or those willing to live in cramped conditions with a bunch of roommates can stay. Taxes are another huge pain point. California has the highest state income tax rate, 13.3% and 14.3% for ultra-high incomes. Business cites fiscal pressure and bureaucracy as the main reasons for fleeing. Since 2019, 491 companies have moved their headquarters out of here. And what do you get for this crazy money? Growing problems. Homelessness in megacities has become an epidemic. Tent cities are expanding. Crime in some areas has spiked, and droughts and wildfires have become regular phenomena. And the local traffic is famously terrible. The pros? California is objectively luxurious, an ideal climate, incredible beaches, mountains, deserts, sequoias. The tech scene of Silicon Valley has no equal. The entertainment industry dominates the world. Universities are top tier, and cultural diversity is immense. The cons: absurdly high costs, unaffordable housing, tax pressure, homelessness, worn out infrastructure, and excessive regulation. From 2020 to 2025, California lost 1.48 million residents in domestic migration. Since joining the U.S., the state gained an additional seat in Congress after every census, until 2020, when it lost a seat for the first time in history. If the trend continues, it will lose even more. So California is beautiful, but most likely not for long. At number 5, Mississippi is a state where being cheap simply isn't enough. It is the state with the lowest cost of living in the USA, yet people are leaving it regardless. In 2025, Mississippi lost population again, joining Vermont and West Virginia on this sad list. About 2.85 million people live here across 47,000 square miles of mostly rural territory. The capital and largest city, Jackson, has a population of only about 140,000 residents. It is a poor region. The average annual household income here is the lowest in the country, about $48,000. So why are people leaving this budget paradise? Because low prices do not solve systemic problems. Mississippi consistently ranks last in almost all key indicators: education, healthcare, economic opportunities, and infrastructure. The education system is weak. Public schools are underfunded, and test scores are among the worst in the nation. If you care about your children's future, living here will be a challenge. The healthcare situation is critical. The state has the worst health rankings in America. Rates of obesity, diabetes, and heart disease are off the charts. Access to quality care is limited, especially in rural areas. Salaries are meager. A low cost of living loses its meaning when incomes are also at rock bottom. Earning $35,000, you are technically surviving, but there is no talk of comfort or career growth. There are also image problems. Mississippi's complex racial history still takes its toll. Some areas feel like they are stuck in the past, and it is not a pleasant feeling. The pros: incredible affordability. You can buy a house for $50,000 to $100,000. Social Security benefits are not taxed. Southern hospitality here is real, and for remote workers with big city salaries, local prices are a gold mine. The cons: failing education and healthcare, a lack of decent work, neglected infrastructure, and bottom-tier rankings in almost everything that matters. From 2010 to 2025, the state lost about 10,000 residents. It is a slow but steady decline. Mississippi proves a cheap life is not enough to keep people. If there are no jobs, decent schools, or hospitals, people will find a way to leave, even if they have to pay more elsewhere. At number 4, Oregon, a progressive state that has priced itself out of reach. The state that everyone called Portlandia in the real world and celebrated as a progressive West Coast paradise is now rapidly losing residents. The net migration rate has fallen to minus 0.29%. On a territory of 96,381 square miles, about 4.1 million people live here. Portland dominates the region with a metro area of 2.4 million, but even it is losing people. Why is Oregon losing its shine? The cost of living has skyrocketed, while the quality of life has plummeted. Once, Portland was famous as a cool, affordable city with a vibrant art scene, craft beer, and proximity to beautiful nature. Now, the average home costs over $610,000. Rent is steep, taxes have gone up, and the return on these expenses has gotten worse. Homelessness in Portland has become ubiquitous. Tent cities have covered the city. The crime rate has skyrocketed. The once lively downtown has partially emptied out, and businesses have closed. Drugs were decriminalized, but a proper treatment system was not created, leading to an open crisis on the streets. Politically, Oregon is progressive. which attracts some and scares off others. The authorities regularly approve new taxes and expand regulations. At the same time, the rural part of the state, everything outside the Willamette Valley, remains conservative and feels forgotten by Portland and Salem. Jobs are concentrated mainly in the metropolis. Outside of it, options are few. So with the spread of remote work, many have realized you can live better and cheaper in Idaho, Montana, or Arizona. The pros: Oregon is very beautiful. The coast, mountains, forests, the desert. There is no sales tax. Portland's cuisine and beer are top-notch. Access to the wilderness. The cons: a high cost of living, expensive housing, a visible homelessness problem, crime, and the feeling that the city has lost control of the situation. Oregon lost population in 2023 and is trying with all its might to hold on to people in 2026. At number 3, New Jersey. The state people dream of escaping. According to a United Van Line study, 68.5% of all moves in New Jersey are outbound. This is the highest outflow rate in the country. Here, on a patch of land, just 8,500 square miles in size, about 9 million people live, making the region the most densely populated in the USA. Squeezed between New York and Philadelphia, it serves as a gigantic bedroom community for both metropolises. Why does New Jersey top the list of those leaving? The reason is simple: taxes. The state has the highest property tax rates in the USA, on average 2.57%. This means that for a house worth $520,000, you pay $13,350 in tax every year, forever. The income tax for the wealthy reaches 11%. The sales tax is 7%, but taking into account local fees on specific goods, it can reach up to 13%. Inheritance taxes, transfer taxes. In New Jersey, practically everything is taxed. Life is expensive. The average home price exceeds $500,000. Car insurance hits record costs due to the no-fault coverage requirement. Everything costs more here. And what do you get in return? Terrible logistics. New Jersey's roads are among the most congested in the nation. High population density guarantees constant crowds. Political corruption has become legendary, and the quality of public services, despite the crazy fees, remains mediocre. A 2020 survey showed a third of residents plan to leave, citing tax pressure as the main reason. Retirees are the first to flee. About 35% of migrants leave specifically for their well-deserved retirement, mostly to Florida, where there are no levies on income and inheritance. The pros: an excellent location next to New York and Philadelphia, the Jersey Shore beaches, cultural diversity, and strong schools in certain districts. If you work in finance or pharmaceuticals, you will find a job. The cons: the highest taxes in America, high cost of living, unbearable traffic, oppressive overcrowding, corruption, and the constant feeling that you are being financially squeezed dry. At the same time, the state's rankings are worse than in cheaper regions in almost all parameters. New Jersey lost population during the pandemic and has barely recovered. At number 2, Illinois, where taxes scare everyone except immigrants. The state with the third highest rate of decline, between 2024 and 2025, it lost about 66,000 residents due to domestic migration. This is the 11th year of continuous decline, starting from 2014. 12.3 million people live here. Chicago, the third largest city in the USA, undeniably dominates, but outside of it stretches a mostly rural and aging region. Why is Illinois bleeding out? There is one answer: taxes. In surveys, fiscal pressure is most often cited as the reason for fleeing. Property tax here is one of the highest in the country, second only to New Jersey. The income tax is fixed, 4.85% for everyone, regardless of wealth. Chicago adds its own levies on almost everything. Taking into account state, county, and city fees, sales tax reaches 10.25%. Food, entertainment, parking. It seems Illinois taxes the very fact of your existence. And what do you get in return? Mediocre service and an eternal financial crisis. The pension hole in Illinois is one of the deepest in the USA, over $100 billion in unfunded liabilities. The state lived for years without a proper budget, accumulating massive debt. The economy is stagnating. Outside Chicago, the labor market is barely breathing. Business is fleeing taxes, bureaucracy, and a hostile climate. In 2022 alone, over 85,000 people left due to domestic migration. But wait, before we continue, subscribe to the channel. That way, I will know that this information is useful. The pros? Chicago is a world-class metropolis. Culture, gastronomy, architecture, entertainment. It has everything. Universities are excellent. And for financiers, IT specialists, and doctors, the city opens up great opportunities. The cons? Laughably high taxes, financial instability, a terrible business climate, and legendary political corruption. Governors here often move from their offices straight to prison. Add to this harsh winters that drag on for months. From 2014 to 2024, Illinois lost almost 200,000 residents. Recently, the numbers have improved slightly, but exclusively thanks to mass international immigration. Without this, the state would be in free fall. However, even immigrants eventually find out about local taxes and often move on to cheaper states. At number 1, Alaska, the last frontier that no one needs anymore. The largest, most remote, and harshest state in the USA. In 2025, Alaska showed the highest percentage of population outflow in the country, 1.56% of all moves. On a gigantic territory of 653,300 square miles, only 713,000 people live. To understand the scale, Alaska is larger than Texas, California, and Montana combined, but the population here is smaller than in the single city of Fort Worth. Huge parts of the state are physically inaccessible by car, and it seems no one is eager to stay there anyway. Alaska is oil and gas. Everything depends on them. Jobs, the budget, and the famous permanent fund dividends that are paid out to residents annually. When oil is expensive, the state thrives. When prices drop, everything falls apart. In recent years, the industry has been volatile, and the economy has never been able to diversify. Outside of resource extraction and civil service, career opportunities are meager. Young educated professionals are fleeing because there is nothing for them to do here. Tourism provides jobs, but only seasonally. Commercial fishing is a dangerous and limited business. Essentially, if you are not an oil worker, a bureaucrat, or a fisherman, what will you live on here? You are far from the rest of the world. Flights to the mainland U.S. are long and expensive. Basic goods cost astronomical amounts of money due to logistics. And in the rural outback, where you can only get by plane or boat, price tags become even more extreme. The climate. Winters here are brutal and dark. In some parts of the state, the polar night lasts for months, when the sun simply does not rise. Temperatures of minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, which equals minus 40 degrees Celsius, are a common occurrence. Seasonal depression reaches epidemic proportions here. This life is not for everyone. And, evidently, definitely not for those 57% of people who decided to leave. The pros. Payments from the permanent fund are $1,000 to $2,000 a year for everyone. No state income or sales taxes. Epic nature. If you are a fan of true wild beauty, Alaska is unmatched. In the right industries, you can earn good money here. The cons? A shaky raw material economy, a narrow labor market, total isolation, expensive groceries, a cruel climate, and a constant feeling of being cut off from civilization. In recent years, Alaska has been steadily losing residents. This state is for a specific kind of people: adventurers, oil workers, and those who genuinely love the cold and solitude. For everyone else, the last frontier turns out to be too harsh, too expensive, and too confining. And now it is your turn. Do you live in one of these states? Are you already packing your bags? Or are you staying behind to turn out the lights when everyone else is gone? Let me know in the comments where you would flee to: Florida, Texas, or maybe just out into the middle of nowhere. I read your stories.